Hello, hello. This is Yuri with Moving Sales Professionals and Let's Talk Moving podcast. And with me today, I have Nick Eybers, the future owner of American Moving and Storage in Chantilly, Virginia. You guys may remember a few episodes ago, we talked to Mike Eybers. That's Nick's dad. So we have the tr slowly but surely we have a transfer from generational somebody that's been in the industry a long, long time to somebody that's newer to the industry, younger, bringing newer ideas and things and such. How you doing today, Nick?
Doing good. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you, Yuri. How are you doing today?
Good, good, good. Thank you so much for joining me. So, I mean, obviously your dad has been in the industry for a long time at this point. I think 30 years, he said, 30 plus. So how did he get you started, or how did you get started in it?
As far as being a family-owned company, I started on the trucks at probably 6 or 7, helping just, pick up dollies, move stuff around, and then probably officially on the trucks at 13, 14 during the summer months when school let out, all up until college. Once I went to college, I said, hey, no more. I'm done. I went off the trucks and I took on a business degree at Old Dominion University where I specialized in maritime shipping. Thought, hey, let's get to the beach, stay away from moving, but I still kind of dabbled in transportation and
Mhm.
then continued on that route for 6 years after college in the maritime shipping industry.
Okay. So are you still doing that, or are you now more towards land shipping and such, or are you able to combine the two somehow?
I wasn't able to combine it. It might be something we do in the future. We've done a little bit here and there with some freight forwarding stuff for customers that we have in stores that need to move, relocate overseas.
Mhm.
But it's not something that we've taken on as a primary role in our business. But yeah, probably 6 years after college, Mike gave me a call up, my dad, and said, hey, my secretary who he's had for 20 plus years is retiring. I don't know what to do. So I put in my 2 weeks with my company, moved back up north, and yeah, so now we're here almost 8 years later.
And now for a word from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more. Cool, cool. So, you and I talked about this a little bit, but of course, here you got like you have a lot of people that say that they got into the industry by accident, myself included. And then you have Nick, who's basically, like I said, a second generation mover. So that's in the family. So you have a different side of the coin, right? But it's also, I think you've seen the things that your dad has done over the past, 30 years or so. What are you thinking? Where are you taking it? Because obviously, as Mike is pushing more and more towards retirement, and we talked about that on his podcast, you are basically taking over more and more. What are your thoughts? What are you going to do differently, or what do you think of doing differently?
Yeah, so immediately when I came on, it was automation. It was getting off the paper contracts. Just, everything that he was doing was paper and pen. So the first thing we did was get a CRM, get automated, get up to speed with our competition, and start building our processes for the moving side of the business as well as the storage side. Going forward, and he's always preached, hey, do what you can do to, I wouldn't say phase out of the moving, but push towards commercial as much as you can. It's just easier, cleaner. As you know, right now in July, residential is crazy and a lot of
Hmm.
headaches, whereas commercial can be sustained and a little bit more less headaches. So that's something we would like to phase more into. Maybe commercial storage, which we dabble a little bit with, and currently as is, we're doing about 40% commercial moving at the moment.
Okay. So you're doing more commercial, but is there other things? I mean, obviously, just like a lot of people that have been doing moving for 30 years, you have people that did yellow pages, you have people that did other type of advertising and stuff like that. What are you doing? What are you thinking going forward?
Yeah, it's definitely the social media factor. I know we talked pre-call about
Yeah.
the book that Gary Vaynerchuk is has out there. It's my dad started with Yellow Pages. He was, that's how they did it. That's how they made their bread and butter. That's how they got all their
Right.
leads. before I came on, he had moved into the Angie's List home advisors market, and they were getting a bunch from that as well as Better Business Bureau. And then as soon as I came on, it was kind of the postcard frontier. We got on with some of the online providers, started getting the MLS listings and sending out the postcards, which I know every moving company, at least in our area, is currently doing. So now these customers are getting hit with 50 to 100 postcards, as soon as they list their house. So now we got to differentiate and get away from that, which is going towards social media, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube Reels. So that is what we need to explore and get into.
Right, right. And that's, yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. I am a big fan of postcards, and I do definitely think that that's a big thing. But you know what? One thing that's not out there today, and I'd be the first person to say that, I think the next frontier, if you're looking at something like that, and I personally haven't discovered yet. So honestly, if anybody's out there and you actually know somebody to do this, please send them my way because I'd love to talk to them. What I would love to see is somebody create a system that allows you to focus on high-end apartments and condos where you can where you can contact people that are either buying them or selling them, or you can contact people that are renting them. Does your company need more creative marketing and ad campaigns to improve traffic and organic leads? Well, Moving Sales Professionals has a solution for you. We have partnered with social media marketing agency that has over 300 million views on their ads and videos across social media, and they have generated over $35 million for their clients over the last 10 years alone. Their services include content creation, social media ads, pay-per-click campaigns, website and funnel development, Google Ads, email marketing campaigns, lead generation, and much, much more. For limited time only, they have discounted rates for their services. Sign up for a free consultation call with us via our Calendly link on our website or below this video. Somehow come out with that system where you can focus on the ones that are, 3 bedrooms and up, condos, townhouses that are up, more high end, where you're talking about somebody not spending $600 a month on rent, but somebody that's spending $10,000 a month, $15,000 a month. If it's big city like New York City, it could be $1 million a month. So like those really high end ones, because right now there's nothing similar that's happening with that rental market or the high end sales market when it comes to apartments, condos, townhouses. That's similar to MLS, but it's different because that market focuses specifically on houses and townhouses, right? That are on sale. In this case, you want to focus on high-end rentals where people they have the money to spend on this, right? And if somebody can come up with an idea of how to focus on that market, that would be the next frontier, I feel, because that's like being able to focus on those. I mean, like I said, obviously they're going to be expensive. So those people have money that they can spend on moving.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully put. It's something that we tried to corner a little bit just by going on Zillow and just creating it ourselves and finding these rentals as they hit the market and targeting those customers individually. We got a little bit consumed just as the summer rush started to hit. Luckily, it is better than last year was, at least for us so far, to where we kind of put that on the back burner. But yeah, that'd be great. If someone creates that, I would love to know as well.
Yeah, I think it's the next frontier. And I actually, once upon a time when I did my podcast with Greg, I did talk to him about that. I asked if that was something he was working on, and it didn't seem like he was at the time. I don't know if that's changed since, but that seems to be like the next high ticket item that, frankly, everybody would love to pay money to get that type of information. Because
Yeah.
because those leads would be similar to leads. Like I have a company, and I mentioned this multiple times, that I work with in Ohio, that all they get is USA home listings, and all they get and all they're spending is that and Google. Because as far as here's one thing that I'm seeing across the industry, obviously talking to companies, still being in a 50-50 capacity, at least on the phone, I can tell you that as bad as leads were before in wintertime, right now, what I'm seeing, if we were having 30 to 40% junk in winter, and it would usually dissipate and be maybe closer to 10% summertime, that's not the case this year. This year, that 30-40% junk remained 30%, 40% junk now in July. It's still that. So the prices are still the same, which obviously the companies need leads, but now there's more junk coming through the lead providers that we're used to trust to give us at least better quality this time of year. That's not happening anymore. Like the
Yeah,
leads, their
it's
leads have been trash, they stay trash, and there's not much going on. I mean, I know companies that have gotten, like a lot of people talk about the consumer affairs and stuff like that. I know a company has gotten consumer affairs, and those leads are not much better. Even though everybody says, oh, consumer affairs is supposed to be these great leads. Nope.
yeah. No, you're totally right. In looking at the housing market, I don't know what the future holds with it, but are people my age and younger going to be able to even buy houses going forward the way that it currently stands? I mean, it's
Mhm.
going to switch more to renting. I just was looking for a home for the past 2 years and
Mhm.
finally struck out and got a rental because I'm priced out, unfortunately, and a lot of my fellow people my age and younger are priced out as well. So
Well, I
you have to be
think
able to corner that market.
Right. I think what I'm seeing, I mean, I bought my townhouse in 2016. So I've been living in this townhouse for 8 years and I got it right before the boost. So I'm still at 3.5% interest rate. Right. So now if you're buying something that's 15-year, you could probably get it about around 5, give and take. But if it's 30, then you're probably in the sixes
Mhm.
or around there, maybe even more, depending on how good or how bad
Yeah.
your credit is, right? But part of that's only part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that the houses right now that are on the market for 500, 600,000 here in Maryland, where we are, for example, right? Those houses in reality, because people are trying to sell those as is, those houses in reality are only maybe 400,000, 350. So we saw what happened in 2010 when that whole seal with all of these people that bought those houses on the peak, and then there were a crazy amount of foreclosures and everything else when they tried to sell them, and the banks were just taking them away left and right. And That's what's happening now. So right now, like I would say if you're looking to get something, it's almost easier. Yeah, you're putting money in somebody else's pocket versus spending on your own. But you're not locking yourself in 15 or 30 years. You're not locking yourself in those percentages. And basically at this point, I think most of us, like I've looked for houses the past 2, 3 years as well, because we're looking to get something bigger and we need to get something bigger, right? And I have a place, so at this point, I'm just paying off my mortgage. I'm happy to
Hmm.
pay off my mortgage every month, despite the fact that I could use a bigger place. It's basically waiting for that bubble to burst at this point and for the prices to go down where it makes sense to buy that house, even if that interest rate is higher. Because the
Yeah.
one thing is that you don't want to deal with both. You don't want to deal with higher interest rate and inflated cost. Because sooner or later you're going to have to sell it. I mean, look, at these days, the game is what? I have my townhouse now. I'm gonna buy a 4 bedroom to 5 bedroom house when I find what I'm looking for. And then my daughter is 6, my son is 10. So in 8 to 12 years, I'm probably gonna be looking for something smaller again. Once those kids get older and go to college, whether it's here or somewhere else, eventually we're going to be looking to downsize again. So if we get something that's 15 years, that would probably take us right to the end of the life of that house. If we get something that's 30, we're never going to see the end of that 30 because we're going to sell before that 30 ever hits. So it's like you want to put yourself in a position where you're not, where either you're buying house for what it's truly worth, where its value could potentially increase and you can sell it for more versus losing money. Like I know right now, the house that I bought, I could sell it right now for 120K more than what I bought it for. But I have nothing to buy. So like I have nowhere to go. So it's like it's that catch 22 right now. So it's either so you
Yeah.
don't want to get like one thing you can deal if you're buying a house at the rate that it's worth, but you don't want to deal with high cost for the home that's not going to cost it when it comes time for you to sell it, and the high interest rate at the same time. If you didn't have both, that's a different story. It's like if it's one or the other, you can deal somehow. But if it's both, that's a little too much, especially if you're trying to think ahead and think in the future, and you know that you're not going to live in that house for the rest of your life.
Yeah, which then of course flows to our business here in the moving industry, and that's one thing to go back and touch on. What am I doing different? Is we've started we've started looking more into long distance. We've picked up a long distance driver over the past 2 years. So we're just taking on a little bit here and there and partnering loads. And most customers here, they sell their home. They can't afford to buy here again with the interest rates. They can't put that money into something new because that value is lost. But they can move elsewhere where the markets are starting to slip a little bit and they can afford houses. So we're starting to pick up a lot of that market as well.
Right. And I mean, long distance moving, you just want to make sure that you do it the right way ultimately. Like because that's like if you can handle it from start to finish yourself, or you can figure out a way to control that process better, because unfortunately there are some bad players out there when it comes to, delivery drivers and what have you that try to gouge the customer on the other side of things. So you want to make sure that whoever you work with is somebody that you can trust not to do that to you.
Yeah, it's been a process. There's been growing pains with it. Having a driver that's 1,000 miles away and you need to get him back in 2 or 3 day turnaround hasn't been fun. It's definitely been a learning curve, but it's gone smooth for the most part. So
Well, we'll,
it's
we'll
been
talk. I
fun.
got some ideas for you, so we'll talk about that afterwards. But
Excellent.
yeah, I mean, it's with us, obviously, moving sales professionals, we have clients throughout the U.S. So that means that when you're one of our clients and you have a truck in a different state, if we happen to have a client in that state, we can always reach out to them and see if they have any loads that you could potentially take home. So that's always an option. That's all. We always keep that line of communication open. I mean, that's possibilities, and obviously, if we're not going to charge that much on it, so like we're only looking to make a little bit, but it's helping you out versus going at home empty. There's always ways of that. So, is there other than that stuff? Obviously, you're doing that. Is there anything you're doing that's unique in a obviously saturated Northern Virginia market?
I mean, just what's unique here is just striving to be an honest company and being a company that's been around for as long as we've been. We do hold that credibility. That's really our main driving force. During the pandemic, a lot of companies popped up in our area, probably an extra 100 plus companies just within our Northern Virginia community, which really started to drive profits down and drive prices down across the board. A lot of them weren't able to fully hold on through this last winter and into this slow spring. So we are starting to get prices up now, but really just being that honest company, the face to face reliability that we can promise our customers, as well as all the referrals that we bring in, is kind of how we're cornering ourselves in our market.
Yeah, and of course, that's something that I pitch all the time is about holding true and building your brand. I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that you're talking about, you had a lot of companies that came on board during that crazy fall COVID that we had, fall and winter, where frankly, that fall and winter, we probably had more in sales. And I obviously I'm speaking from the sales perspective because that's something that I know best. But speaking from the sales perspective, we had more sales that time of year than we had during that summer right before it, which was insane. I mean, we had close to $1 million in sales in November, which was more than we had that July. And
Yeah,
it's
it, it was
that's like never happens,
it was
but
incredible for us. It was a
oh
ride to
no.
be on. That's for sure.
Right, but what it did basically, you had all these new players that came into the market and saw that and jumped on board, and they were thinking it was going to continue that way. For those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, we just saw that as a blip. We just saw that as something that's outside the norm, so we did not expect that to last. And as such, yeah, like the winter after that kind of sucked because it was obviously a lot slower. But a lot of us that had been in the industry, we expected it to be that way. These new companies that jump in, they thought it was going to be the same, and they maybe budgeted less, maybe spent more money that summer than they should have, in planning to have that little bit of a cushion for the slow season, and they didn't. And as a result, a lot of them ended up flying out of they were there and then they were gone for a lot of them, which is dropping back to normal at this point. but I think it's I mean, I don't know what your feel is, but my feel is like I think if we haven't plateaued yet, I think we're very close to it. It
I think
feels
you're
that
right.
way.
I've talked to a lot of companies around here that have gone that are giving up and throwing in their hats, and there's some bigger guys coming in and taking over, which is great if we can all get our prices back up, and that seems to be where we're at. And back to your point on that, having Mike in the back seat as we were kind of going through this and coming out of that pandemic year was great because he had the experience, he had the knowledge to tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, hold your money, keep some money in the accounts. We're gonna have to weather this storm. And even going into this summer and starting to build our accounts back up, he said the same thing. Hey, let's stay conservative, stay keep on track, and flow through this next winter to see what this is like, and then hopefully after next winter we'll come out of it and get back up on top.
Yeah, my feeling is that I think this fall and winter, I think it's definitely going to be busier than it was last year. Not that you go any lower, right? But I think I think it's going to increase. To what extent? To that part, I don't know. That what part I couldn't answer. We'll see when we get there, right? But
Yeah,
I feel like it's starting. It's like I said, it's plateauing right now, and I feel like it's. I mean, there's no way but up. It shouldn't be, and then hopefully throughout. I mean, finally, the election year is here. The election is only a couple of months away. So once that happens, that's going to change the direction of a lot of things, whether it's, government moving, military, or other things. But we're going to be able to see this stuff a lot more.
yeah. I'm also really curious to see what the frontier of the office moving commercial side of it is going to be, um, as these 5-10 year leases come to a close in a lot of these office spaces. What is going to happen? I know it's constantly in the news, but what is that going to lead to as far as our industry? Will that even flow into residential as well?
Well, I mean, that's one thing. The other thing, obviously, for Virginia area, there's a lot of military bases and stuff like that. So getting more into military stuff and maybe having a military approved warehouse would be something that would be in the cards for you guys specifically, because I can tell you, I mean, I used to with a couple of companies that I work with, we used to do things with Cartwright being one of the subcontractors for the U.S. government as far as their moving side goes, and that we were doing that particular side of it. And I can tell you, generally, military season for military moving, it runs basically from like mid-April till about mid-August to end of August. That's like the busiest time. And of course, unfortunately for us being in the moving industry, that directly coincides with our busy season. And while military can give you all this additional stuff, that also happens at the same time where we could use those extra trucks to do our regular local or office or whatever other moving that's our seasonal, impact, right? So one thing is trying to get your warehouse military approved, because then you could potentially have that stuff trickling in year round versus just those 3-4 months during our regular busy seasons where frankly we don't need it as bad anyway.
Yeah, correct. It's something that Mike always wanted to stay out of. That we have been looking at as of recently. Getting the warehouse approved is step one, and then from there, we currently take a lot of overflow military work as is.
Mhm.
So we're used to it, and there's a lot to have in our area. You're right; it is something that we really need to kind of take on.
Yeah, and let me ask you this now. Obviously, Mike had more of a interest in staying smaller. Now, is that the same thought process that you have, or you're interested in seeing more growth?
No, it definitely want to see more growth. Mike was comfortable keeping it as is. He raised me, my brother, and my sister. Was able to put us all through college, which was fantastic. A lot of people can't do that these days, as well as have a work life balance. He was able to make a lot of the sports games even while he was working here till 9-10 p.m. So I want to see growth in our future. We have the right people here to do it with, especially partnering with you as well as our other resources that we have. It's something that we need to really take on. We're right there. We're kind of right on that edge to either take that way or stay the way we are, and that path's kind of right there for us.
Yeah, so I mean, I've talked to multiple people about, growth potential and stuff like that. And I can talk to you about that because I know somebody that's trying to sell it, that's been trying to sell it, their company in
Hmm.
Virginia, and it's a good one. So it's might be something that you guys perhaps would be interested in, which would obviously help you a lot with the growth factor, and at the same time keep what you're doing because it's going to it would be in the same, it would follow the same path that you guys followed because it would fit right in the way that you guys are trying to do things anyway. Other than that, I mean, it's sometimes growth doesn't necessarily mean adding an extra location because sometimes adding that extra location is not necessarily going to, you're going to look bigger, but are you going to really be growing per se? Not
So we've
necessarily. So you
taken
got to
on,
do all the numbers.
yeah, we've done this very slowly over the 8 years that I've been back here working with my dad, and we have doubled the company since I've came on as far as our revenue, while being able to maintain a double growth in profit as well. So you're right, taking that next leap, we want to do it conservatively to be able to grow as well as keep that money in our pockets also.
Yeah. Well, we can continue talking about that, but like I mean, I like the idea of conservative growth, and I think just like with me opening this company, it's always been about a degree of calculated risk, so to speak. Because when it comes down to like we've always ran on cash capital, we have no loans, we have no you know, we don't owe anybody any money. So
Mm-hmm.
we've always been able to run this way. And it was with the whole idea, besides everything else that we do, just to do a calculated risk. And I think that that's kind of where you want to go. I mean, obviously, if you don't risk, you don't gain, but you want to make sure that the risks that you do take, it's not going to be something that's going to be a make it or break it situation.
Exactly.
But we can talk about this all the time, and it's great to have you join me. So, we'll make sure that you guys listening are paying attention to what's going on. We don't want to make this too long. Please like us, please subscribe us. Obviously we're on the social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all that stuff. And I know Nick is doing that as well with American Movings and Storage. Please check him out. We're going to make sure we have links for them as well under the podcast. And once again, as I always say, the world moves on its own, so let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you very much for joining us, Nick. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk again soon.